Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing this evening? It's the top of the hour here, and so we are going to get this webinar kicked off in just a quick moment. Very, very excited to be coming at you both, at you all here this evening to talk about really the intersection of increasing practice valuation. If you're in a position right now of looking to potentially sell your practice, and really the intersection and the role that marketing plays into that as well too. This is going to be a fantastic conversation this evening. So I'm going to give this about maybe just 20 more seconds, just let everyone kind of filter in here, and then we will begin. For those of you who do not know, my name is Michael Antozzi. I am the Director of Practice Growth Consulting over here with MyAdvice. And I'm also joined here with Lauren Wheeler. Lauren is with the practice companies. They do a lot of great work with helping practices when they're in a position of looking to potentially sell into private equity, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, as well as another arm with hey, if you're beginning your practice and where to begin, they help really on the acquisition and getting the start side as well too. So, Lauren, why don't you, if you can, just give us a little bit of a background on yourself as well as the practice companies.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And Michael, by the way, I'm so glad to be here chatting with you about this exciting industry. The history of the practice companies, we were really born out of a real estate company. And so we've been helping healthcare practice owners from an advisory standpoint since 2015, both helping practice owners who either want to start their first location or maybe want to expand to location 2, 3, 4, 5, and more. We help with site selection, lease negotiation. We also have a sister company, which I am glad to be a part of, Practice Transitions Group. We help practice owners sell. And really what I specialize in is, and what our firm specializes in, is helping practice owners who are interested in partnering with private equity. So we help them kind of get their practice underwritten in terms of the historical financial trends, the data around providers and procedures, and operational data that the market wants to know, and we put it together in a very marketable, clean format and really help our sellers find the right partner for a private equity partnership.
Yeah, I love that you use that word partner. I find that that's such an invaluable thing when our practices are trying to really build out their team. I always talk about how you really need to bring a stable of players onto your team that are really going to be there serving as guides and advisors along the way. So I love that, and that's how the ethos of your company. I'll just give you guys just a bit of an introduction here to who I am with, which is MyAdvice. So I'm our Director of Practice Growth Consulting. I've actually been in this industry now for, gosh, about 14 years, but really just helping practice owners to become really much more profitable through their web presence, their digital marketing, with also not being in positions where they have to overspend to see less back. That's really one of the things that we find that when practices are in a growth mode and then they're looking to scale, they need really marketing solutions that can really help to grow with them over the course of time, especially if folks might be very brand new and embryonic and kind of new into their markets. They don't really have much of a plan or a strategy, and having a company that can really grow and to evolve with them over the course of time. So, actively right now, we serve about 3,000 practices throughout the United States, as well as into Canada. I also have various faculty positions I presented before at AmSpa, the Aesthetic Show, which I'll be at in a few weeks. Lauren, will you be there as well too, out of curiosity?
I won't. I was in Vegas in April. Won't be there this time, but I know it'll be fun.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely miss you. But anyway, bottom line is, we really also too really serve as that partner for the groups that we work with as well too. So guys, we're here tonight. We're really going to be talking about, again, like the intersection of how marketing helps to drive practice valuation and when you might be looking to sell a practice. And so, Lauren, one of the things that I always get asked, especially when I'm talking to more mature practices, is if folks really want to understand, what are some of the financial metrics and indicators that practice owners should be thinking about, data that they should be looking to really, numbers that they should be looking to grow into if they're trying to bring on a private equity partner. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what those metrics look like?
Sure. It's a great question. So really kind of the key metrics that any private equity group is going to look at, really, there's one key metric, and that's EBITDA, which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically a proxy for cash flow. So the industry is always throwing around this term, and it's obviously an important term, but to your point, there are many KPIs that feed into a practice's ultimate profitability. Number one is sales. You've got to have sales of a certain amount. You also have to have, cost of goods sold to produce those sales, and you want to make sure that you're in line with what the industry standards are. Of course, we know from our experience of having underwritten several med spas and brought several great med spas to market across the country over the past 24 months, margin profiles vary. They vary from a heavy injectable practice to one that has maybe more laser and aesthetic treatment services. So while every practice may have different KPIs, it's important that a business owner is at least tracking them and at least understands them. And if their gross profit margins are declining, they want to understand why so that they can change it quickly, because all of that feeds into the ultimate bottom line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We also look at a lot of performance metrics as well too when we start to really drive an online presence as well as a web strategy. So I think a lot of that really does placate into, when practices really understand a lot of their marketing data, how that can really help with increasing more practice valuation. Some of the things that we really like to see are common ratios relative to, and this is actually something I want to talk to you about in a little bit, because you gave me some really great insights as to how actually reviews placate into practice valuation. But that's actually one of the things that when we talk to practice owners that we find is one of the least expensive ways of actually developing a marketing strategy that has some of the highest return on investment, which is Google reviews. Google reviews, in today's age, what we've actually found with our data points is that even for practices that are very heavily referral driven, patients generally still tend to look at about 3 to 4 other practices, even in addition to that one referral. So I think a common fallacy that a lot of my practice owners that I see kind of fall into is they make this assumption that, oh, people are going to, they're getting referred over, they're going to convert right away, which is definitely not always the case. A referral is just an opening to the door and nothing more than that. So, marketing strategies really still have to be set up in such ways where they can still convert those referrals. And one of the most effective ways that we found of doing that is Google review building. It's not just about having a high rating. It's not just about having a good volume. Actually, one of the most important metrics that we like to track is the consistency by which how reviews are being populated. Is there, say, a 6-month gap, which I actually just saw this the other day. I was talking to a practice who very heavily, fee for service, cash driven, does a lot of injectables, a lot of body contouring, and it had been a 6-month gap from between the time that they had their last review. And I was actually asking this practice, I was like, well, how many patients do you generally see in a given week? And they're like, we're probably around like 100 or so. And I'm like, well, why has it been 6 months since you've seen your last review? So generally, like a ratio that practices really need to be thinking about from a marketing perspective is, a 5 to 10% return rate of new Google reviews compared to how many patients they're seeing in a given week, or even in a given month, because really it's that newness, it's that freshness that not only just helps with a lot of like Google visibility, but it's just one of the easiest buying decisions that a patient can make. They look you up online, they see, oh, they've got a lot of slew of great reviews from just a few weeks ago. It just makes it a no-brainer decision to obviously convert. And consequently, that also has an impact on your bottom line as well, too. It actually helps to lower your cost of acquisition, which is why we say it's one of the cheapest forms of marketing. You were talking to me though earlier today just about what you look at on some of your metrics with evaluating a practice and relative to their review strategy. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll just begin by saying, the internet has enabled us as a culture to become an educated consumer. And, you have to believe if you're deciding to do something to your face or your body, you're going to be educated about that. And our culture, the first place we go is Google. And so, how does that translate into a practice's valuation? So when we're bringing a practice to market, we use what we call a confidential information memorandum, CIM or SIM. And it's essentially a kind of a marketing packet with a lot of information about the practice, financial data, operational data, procedures, providers. We dedicate a whole page and sometimes even a section of that marketing material, which is disseminated directly to potential buyers, to Google reviews. And absolutely, it's paramount. I can give you an example. I've got a practice on the market right now, and we have had a wildly successful response from the market. We've gotten multiple offers. We're going to negotiate a top of market deal for this practice owner. And I can tell you, she has over 700 4.9 star Google reviews.
Wow.
And exactly. And what's interesting about that example is, look, she's creating an exceptional customer experience. I mean, she's doing the work within the four walls of her location. She's got a recurring patient base. Her clients love her and will go nowhere else. But what she's done by making sure that her clients are leaving her Google reviews is she's turned that into a metric. So private equity, they love metrics, they love data. And so it's a lot more powerful to go to a potential buyer and say, this gal has over 700 4.9 Google reviews, as opposed to just saying she creates a great customer experience. Trust me.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess kind of what you're saying is that, I mean, even that great experience has to be quantified in some way.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. You mentioned that it's a kind of a cheaper form of lead, right? Lead development. And I think that is so important. I mean, that's another thing that we do when we're underwriting practices is we look at the marketing spend and we ask our clients, what has been effective in the past, what hasn't been effective, what's your cost per lead? And you'd be surprised how many med spa owners can't answer those questions. And, every dollar that you spend, I mean, you've got to get a return on that money. And so to be able to quantify that and make sure that you're making the right decisions in terms of your marketing dollars is incredibly important.
So, in a follow up to that, one of the things that I always help to educate my clients on is that building a successful marketing strategy, one that's going to be productive, is very much a mindset. It's about what practice owners value, how they see themselves positioned. Do they see the idea of marketing as something that is going to pay them back and give them an ROI and an investment, or do they see it as it's just another bill that I have to write every single month? So that practice owner that you were just talking about, the one that had that, almost 800 Google reviews, how does mindset really placate into increasing more of that valuation on the client side? Can you talk to us a little? I don't know if if that question makes sense. I can rephrase it if you like.
Well, yeah, please, yeah, rephrase it. I want to make sure I'm
I
answering
just
you.
want to know, like, did did the mindset of that particular practice owner, did that placate the stuff that she really brought to you? Um, is that helping now with her achieving multiple like higher offers into her practice? Is she seeing her practice more as a business and less as a practice? I would love to maybe understand a little bit more as to where she's at.
Sure. She's a unique owner. She's also done a good job of training up providers to replace her. So she is not the key revenue producer in the practice. And you mentioned kind of important metrics earlier. And I think that's an important one too, is for a provider owner to be willing to diversify revenue stream away from themselves. And so this particular owner has done that over probably about a 2-year period. She's kind of given up as many of her clients and passed them on to her younger gals. Um, as she can. And so she's probably generating about 18% of the revenue. But what that means is she's really available to pay attention to the business and pay
Mhm.
attention to the business metrics and be available to make sure that the customer experience is happening, every day in the exact same way. And yeah, that's translated into, all of those very high Google reviews. And she's going to basically cherry pick from the very pretty much, I mean, from all the players are interested uh, in acquiring her, at least most of them are, and she's going to pick the best one that fits her.
One of the things that this is just again another challenge that I find a lot of practice owners they think that marketing as it relates, and this is going to kind of play it into mindset, but they have this idea that I'm going to invest in some marketing and like by tomorrow I'm going to have this very robust infrastructure, and maybe that's a little bit exaggerated, but let's just even say 3 months from now that things are going to be really good. I'm going to be top of Google searches and I'm going to be generating a ton of leads and so on and so forth. And guys, really realistically, like nothing happens that way. Nothing in life is just a turning on the light switch and all of a sudden you're getting results overnight. um I talk a lot about marketing, how it's somewhat like a stock portfolio, where it's something that you're diversifying your assets, you're investing into multiple different things because what you're really trying to build is more of an infrastructure, which does take time to produce good quality results, leads, revenue, and things of that nature. So on that point, I'm just kind of curious to know, like, what can practice owners do in your experience to prepare for really a successful sale into a private equity firm? Um,
Well, first of all, it's all about timing. So a practice owner needs to consider a transition when they still have a good 3 to 5 years to commit to a buyer.
mm,
Because a private equity sale, it's not like a typical kind of hand over the keys and I'm on the beach situation. These private equity groups are coming in. They don't necessarily know, they don't have the licensure or the um, background to perform aesthetic services. And so they need the people to stay with the practice to continue to perform the aesthetic services. So the one thing I would do, first of all, if I'm a practice owner and I'm curious about exploring this, is make sure that I kind of am doing it where I'm leaving myself enough room to keep practicing before I want to retire. Now, on the flip side, there's a lot of excitement around med spa in the private equity industry, and there are some people who are creating kind of their career 2.0, where they've built a very successful practice, and part of the partnership goal is to partner with a private equity group that can come in, can kind of take off the administrative duties that are, not the practice owner's highest and best use, running payroll, accounting, finding the, cheapest insurance, and then really enabling that practice owner to continue to grow their practice and possibly grow additional locations in the market.
mhm.
So even if somebody still has 10 to 15 years left in them, it could still be a great time to partner. Now, the second thing that you have to ask yourself as a practice owner is, am I big enough? Because these groups do require a certain amount of cash flow for it to make sense to make an acquisition. So, a good metric is, I think you really have to have about $2 to $2.5 million of revenue, preferably 3 million. And so how do we get there, right? Well, we have an organized and a well thought out marketing strategy. We've got to figure out how to get people in the door, and you have to make sure that you're being effective with all the dollars that you spend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And being effective with the dollars that you spend definitely rings very true for me as well too, because so often, as I kind of said at the beginning of this talk, is that we see practice owners overspending to ultimately see less back. And not only are they frustrated, but that's taking them much further away from some of the transition goals that they also might have in the back of their mind, say, 5, 10 years down the line. Kind of an analogy that I like to utilize is, and for those of us who are in aesthetics that are watching us, imagine me coming to see you as a potential patient, and if I said, "Hey, make me look better, make me feel better, but give me that Botox on my face," but I'll just tell you as well too. I smoke and I drink and I party my face off all the time, and I eat like crap and I don't exercise. But I want you to make me look better. Um, a lot of times, I'm sure that those of us who are watching, have probably seen patients with those types of expectations, and you're probably thinking like, my name is not Jesus Christ. I'm not a miracle worker. If you obviously want to drive sustainable results, there you might want to think about eating better or sleeping better or exercising better, because that's what's ultimately going to help you to be have a better quality of life. And what we've actually found on the marketing side is that it really doesn't differentiate all that either as well too. Where often when practices, when they're just getting started, or if hey, maybe if they're looking on a sales side, they're starting to do some aggressive strategies with their marketing, but they're missing a lot of the foundation. And what I'll just share with you guys just very quickly here is kind of it's a bit of a step-by-step guide, which is what we call our pyramid of success. And what this basically is, it's kind of an overall framework. And it's a step-by-step process that what we have really found is the best way of driving sustainable results, without also putting you into, or practice owners into positions where again they're spending more to see less back. Um, I'll go back to that idea of mindset. Is that what we're doing is we're whether you're starting to track a lot of your data and KPIs because that you're looking at that transition or that sale 3 to 5 years down the line, like Lauren had mentioned, or hey, if I'm really trying to build a marketing infrastructure that's going to support and lead to those goals as well too, things do take time. But you have to be committed to the process and really committed to the work here. So really what we have found in terms of really driving the best results from marketing, really number one, it always starts with having a great website. And you'd be even surprised at how many times I talk to practice owners that they don't even think they need websites anymore. They think that, hey, I'm just going to post a bunch on social media and call it good. Not necessarily always the case, because having a great website, to Lauren's point, really helps again with tracking so much performance metrics of your practice. So hey, if we know that our Google reviews are going to be getting looked at, or if we know that the amount of leads that our website's capturing through say contact forms or chats, how all that matters into increasing a potential higher sale of my practice, having a great website really helps to inform and track all of that data. Website has to look good, it has to be beautiful, but it also really has to convert leads efficiently as well too. Now, one of the things that we find is that a lot of practices will start to do a bunch of ad spend right away, which while that can be good, it's not necessarily going to be the best recipe for sustainable results. Sure, you might get a few leads here or there, but are they really going to be high lifetime value patients? Probably not. So, number one is, once a great website is created, how effective or how aligned is what we call your business listing information online? Do you have a proper sequence in a way of how your practice's name, address, and phone number is showing up among profiles in local directories? From there, it's about great Google reviews. Again, we talked a little bit more about that, how consistent you are on that front. Do you have good, consistent social media? Are you feeding these platforms with Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok? Although we don't know necessarily what's going to be happening with TikTok over the next 12 months with some of the what's going through Congress. But as of today, right now, it still can be an effective platform. And that's really what we would then call like having that right foundation. However, when the goal is to grow quicker and faster and more acceleratedly, sure, now do we start to layer in what we call SEO, we actually more specifically prefer to define it as content strategies, because that's really what SEO is. It's the information that how it's being housed on your website, and then paid ads finally being one of the last things that you want to do. But the whole idea about this is, again, building a very healthy marketing foundation, so that way when um, companies like Practice Transitions Group are starting to evaluate your practice, you can go to market and have them understand, listen, we're tracking all this data. We've built a sustainable marketing infrastructure, and we really have healthy margins and a healthy EBITDA, because, again, our marketing is not inflating more of our overhead. So that's, again, definitely one of the ways that we've found to be most effective with overall practice growth as well too.
Yeah, and I'd love to touch on two points that you made. The first is, you mentioned a diversified marketing strategy. So we're getting, we're out there on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on our website. So one of the key pieces of information that we communicate to potential buyers about our practices are the patient demographics, to the extent that we can pull them.
Sure.
And that diversity across platforms is very important, right? Because we all know that the potential patient that's on TikTok is going to have a different demographic than the one that's on Facebook. And that's important information for a private equity group, because it's different dollars and maybe a different type of recurring patient. And so I agree with you. I think you do want to be capturing a nice, diverse range of patients, and that means a diversified portfolio of spend dollars, or of advertising spend. And then I also want to focus on, you mentioned leads. And one of the things that, one of the trends that's going to happen and has already happened from private equity taking an interest in med spa is increased competition. So I'm sure that every med spa owner on this call knows exactly what I'm talking about, because I visit with folks all the time. There's a new med spa that popped up around the corner. We don't even know if they're licensed. They're selling, $8 Botox. There's a ton of competition out there. And so what that means is we've got to capture the patient. And so the leads have to be, number one, measurable. So we have to be able to look on our website, and if we've got somebody that's, maybe in a chat box, or we know that somebody's looking at our website or engaging with us on social, we can't miss that. That's gold right there. That's a potential patient. They also have to be actionable. And so as a practice owner, you have to have a system in place for taking quick action on that potential lead, because if you don't respond to them and reach out to them and engage with them in a timely manner,
Totally.
they're going to go down the street.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point, Lauren. Actually, we have some data that we had found, is that when kind of going back to the whole idea of, my practice is very referral driven, I rely on referrals. Well, when leads do come in, again, keep in mind that, like, you're not the only practice that patient is evaluating. But we actually found an interesting study that when leads come in for a practice, if there is engagement of that lead within the first 30 minutes of time, generally speaking, a practice could be converting that lead into a consultation around 78% of the time. However, and this is where it gets really interesting, if it's been longer than 30 minutes, the conversion rate drops by half to 34%. So wild, right? I mean, so much of really how you're converting leads and driving revenue is really just a function of, who's the early bird gets the worm.
Mm.
Those that are being the most aggressive, the most responsive to that patient, are the ones that are going to win the business building game. So, that's why when we even look at, website metrics, for example, one of the things that's always just a head scratcher for me is I go to a website and I look at it and I'm like, where's the phone number? How can I get in touch with this practice? You can even imagine how many practices are potentially not even just getting to that lead opportunity because patients are having a harder time converting.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I would absolutely say, especially now that we're in the realm of artificial intelligence and AI, that's been such a big shift that's happened over the last 18 months in terms of just our evolution, as of as humanity. And I hate using that word humanity with AI, but I think that it is, it's affecting how we're living our everyday lives. But there are absolutely tools that you can incorporate as a part of your marketing pieces, which help to provide that instant engagement for leads as they come in, without even requiring your time to really be available to respond to leads, especially at say 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, which generally speaking, that's when we tend to find lead acceleration is, or lead volume is a little bit more accelerated. Patients have time, before they're going to bed. They're kind of doing their homework and their research, and so AI chat tools can very much have an impact in terms of how you convert. And then, sorry, that was my Alexa hearing me in the background there, so I think
Yeah.
it was probably pretty fitting. Alexa, stop, please. But yeah, no, so that's all good stuff. Um,
Well, and I want to make one other point because I just do
sure.
not think it can be underemphasized. So when we're talking about allocating dollars to capturing leads, I think it's paramount to understand what your ROI is on your other marketing spend. Because let's say we've gone and we've spent on radio, right? But we can't really measure it. We don't know if we're actually getting anything. Well, that, $15,000 that we spent on radio spots, we could have allocated that towards lead management and making sure that we're capturing leads. And so I just want to reemphasize how important it is for practice owners to really understand the return on investment they're getting for their marketing dollar spend across the board.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because and that's really also as well to how you're able to gauge a holistic view as to how marketing is really working for you. Is, are you looking at the return on your investment from multiple different channels? When I get my quarterly report from my financial advisor, he's not just telling me, hey Michael, your portfolio's increased say 10% this quarter and just be happy with that. No, like, we're breaking down every single individual fund. If a fund has been underperforming for say the last 4 quarters, maybe we're having a reevaluation as to should we be thinking about divesting that and getting into some other things as well too. And so, it's an ongoing relationship. But I'm really grateful for my financial advisor because he tells me these things proactively. I don't have time to think about that. I have kids, you have kids, you're working, I'm working. I mean, thank God that we have those people that are kind of looking over our shoulder to help give us the best strategic advisement. And I would also say, I think that that's probably a strong ethos, Lauren, that both of our companies also bring to the table for our clients as well, too. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. This is such a rewarding job. I mean, we love helping people. We love helping. If you think about your typical healthcare practice owner or your med spa owner, not only are they taking great care of their patients and enabling their patients to feel their best by day, but they're business owners by night. And that is just a huge, I mean, they're wearing the big red cape, right? I mean, they're making kind of the economy go around. And I have one of my sellers, for example, the thing that makes her most proud about the 18 years she's been in business is she's been able to support 11 women who have helped support their families. And
Wow.
it's so rewarding. I develop great friendships with my clients, and to be able to not only help them realize a significant financial reward, but more importantly, putting in place the right steps for the legacy of their business going forward is a hugely rewarding part of this job.
Yeah, I totally hear that as well too. One of my clients, gosh, is probably 10 years ago at this point now, Stanford trained doctor, and I met her and her husband, and she was literally working out of a shoebox. Had zero infrastructure, was barely even renting a space, but we kind of started with some very foundational marketing things with her. That eventually grew into a very small shoebox that she had, a little bit of a larger shoebox, but at least she had an office and a place to see patients. That grew into a few additional staff members, which transitioned to, maybe now they have 3 officeries, to now my client, penthouse suite of their office building. She has her own surgical center, and it's really cool being able to kind of be a part of some of those initial, kind of seeing them almost as babies and watching them evolve and to grow into, business adults, if you will. I want to get back to what you talked about with leads, because leads are definitely important. Don't get me wrong. But you can also have a lot of crap leads. You can have a lot of, lead stuffing. And oftentimes that's how marketing companies will um, look at the value that they're presenting to you. You know, one of the things that when I talk to my practice owners is I ask them, how's the state of your practice doing? And, oftentimes what they say to me, it always sounds the same. It could be, last month was my best month, last quarter was my best quarter. And really, what's kind of driving a lot of those answers is they look at their patients very transactionally. They might say, all right, how many people did I see? What did they spend? Okay, what was my cost on marketing? And that's oftentimes how the relationship is really developed, and how practice owners relate to marketing. And that's a fine perspective, but um, it's also somewhat shallow, because yes, while marketing is meant to produce those transactions, but its true value for your practice is about what is it helping to build more predictive revenue pipeline? What are the investments that you're making into your strategy now that are paying you, say, 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, even a year down the line? It's what we really call patient lifetime value. Not seeing patients so transactionally, but seeing, all right, well, what can one patient actually bring into my practice over many years? And knowing that, hey, when we're thinking about the sale of our practice, how it is a longer runway. The question is, how are you building more of that lifetime value patients into your practice? And what we've actually found, even within med spas,
Mhm.
a $3 million med spa, for example, $2 to $3 million med spa, generally speaking, the average valuation that a patient will invest into their practice over a 10 to 15-year period is around $57,000. Plastic surgery, it's even higher. It's around 80,000 to $110,000. And it's really just interesting, because practice owners, they don't see the world that way, right? We just see like what's in front of us. What's the gas in my car? How is it depleting? And then I got to fill up the gas engine again. They're not necessarily saying to themselves, well, gosh, those two new patients that walked through my door today have a potential valuation of over $100,000 of revenue into my practice if we just create the right experiences,
Mhm.
we treat them right, and we really get them to see us as a strategic partner in their overall aesthetic care. So again, it's really about playing the long game, folks. Not just for thinking about the sales side. It's like, all right, how are we really prepping ourselves to really be into that right position, and to hopefully be that client that you're referring to, whether she's getting multiple offers into her practice.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that speaks to, again, that our practice owners, they're entrepreneurs and they only have so much time in the day. And believe it or not, that's actually why I have some sellers come to me, is because, they'll say, I know that I've built a great team, great culture, a great customer experience. I have the best providers in the community where I am, but I know that we could maximize this, and they're just looking for somebody to kind of offload the things are not mission critical for the provider themselves or the owner themselves, and just give them kind of the tools to, I kind of call it supercharging. If you get with the right private equity partner, they will supercharge your practice. They will help you make the right decisions around, thinking about long-term patient value, marketing dollars. They can really be a giant value add just in terms of additional resources.
Also too, Lauren, with a lot of the consolidation that is happening right now, and practices are popping up left and right. I mean, I'm just curious to know, like, what are some of the things that you're finding that help to differentiate practices?
A great question. And to your point, with the consolidation, there's hundreds of millions of dollars allocated, private equity dollars allocated toward the med spa industry. And I think we're just going to see even more rapid consolidation over the next 18 to 24 months.
Mm.
So what can a provider do or a practice owner do to differentiate their practice? The Google reviews, the great customer experience, having a nice diversified provider base, because again, a lot of this is about mitigating risk. And I would do this even if I were a practice owner not seeking a transaction. If you've got $1.3 million injector, and then everybody else is maybe producing 200, 300, 600,000. If your $1.3 million injector gets poached, maybe by the private equity group that, acquired the folks next door, that's a ton of revenue to go out the door. And so you really want to make sure that you've got a nice diversity within your provider base.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more as well too. I'm actually talking to one of my clients who's coming to us, and she's kind of almost in the sense of desperation because her main injector, who was about 40% of her revenue, has just they left.
Yeah.
Went to go manage another practice, and the problem that again this practice is having is that they've just been super reliant on that cash cow for many years and have really fallen off on terms of building out the business, building out the marketing infrastructure. And it's a bit of a challenge because practice owners in that position also oftentimes come with a mindset of desperation. It's like I need to get this hole plugged as quickly as possible because all my revenue just left to go manage another practice. Well, the reality is that again, you want to start to build that infrastructure, marketing diversity, business building diversity, really from the get-go. And that's
Right.
really the best way of avoiding, future failures.
Yeah, you can't just throw money at the problem. You have to always be thoughtful about it. Absolutely.
Totally, for sure. So, well, guys, we're about 40 minutes in here. I would say this would be a good time just to kind of take a bit of a quick break. And we have a bit of a smaller group here this evening, but guys, if there's any questions that you have for Lauren or myself, I would love to just open up the Q&A here. On the Zoom is a little Q&A button. If there's any questions or anything that might have come up from this conversation, either on the marketing side, on the sales side, would love to be able to hear from you. We got a quiet group here tonight. Not to put anyone on the spot. No? Going once? Going
Okay,
twice?
can I jump in? This is Candace with the practice company.
Sure. Hey,
One of my
Candace.
questions, hi, thank y'all for this discussion. I am taking copious notes over here. I'm just wondering what general opportunity, Lauren, you're seeing in the market, like what kind of numbers you're seeing, what appetite is there? That's a question I have for you, is like what's kind of the, it seems like there's this uptick in energy, but can you describe that or put some color on that for me as someone who's continually learning this business? And Michael, for you, my question is, what are you seeing? What characteristics, whether it's, you can do metrics if you want, or maybe just a top 3 if you want, but what marketing boxes are your top performing clients checking when it comes to their marketing program?
Great.
Great questions. So in terms of the vibes in the market, it is an exciting time to be in med spa. I touched on it earlier. There are hundreds of millions of dollars allocated towards med spa strategies. And we've got a range of buyer profiles from groups that have already acquired, 25, 30 practices, all the way to groups who are still looking for their very first practice. And that is what is really driving some very high multiples. I would just say multiples are generally, if you've got at least 500,000 of EBITDA, so if you're kind of clipping along at that 2.5 million, $3 million revenue, and you're measuring your KPIs and you have kind of the industry standard margins, then you should be about 500K EBITDA or more. So you can anticipate a 6 to 8 to maybe more times multiple on your earnings. But what's really exciting now is we're enabling our clients to really kind of paint the picture of what excites them for sort of their career 2.0, because we do have some very sophisticated, very successful private equity groups that are looking to get into the industry, and they need top talent. And they're looking for people to teach them and help them build out a successful platform. And so med spa owners that have, been in the trenches and, you know, have built a successful med spa even in the face of plenty of adversity. There's a lot of opportunity to sell to the right group, and I emphasize the right group. I want to circle back, Michael, to something that you said at the very beginning, which was culture. You know, that's really kind of the key here. I mean, there's so much focus on valuations, and while that's very important, and of course I tell my clients all the time, the day that the 6 figures or 7 figure, you know, check or wire hits your bank account's an exciting day. But what I want to solve for is I want to have a client that calls me in 12 to 18 months and says, Lauren, this partnership has been better than I ever could have imagined. You helped me find the right fit for the culture of my practice, and we've grown more successfully than I could have ever imagined. That's what I'm aiming to deliver.
Lauren, can I ask you a follow-up question on the numbers? You gave some, I appreciate those, like these ballpark metrics, like, hey, if you're producing this much, you can expect this. Injectables, is this, uh, you know, is this kind of, I want to say black box, but that's like maybe too on the nose for injectables, but like, is there a number of injectables that for injectables that you're seeing PE be particularly interested in? Or is it more what y'all were talking about early in this conversation where it doesn't have to be A or B, it can be any of these numbers as long as you're tracking them? I'm curious to know what you're seeing there.
So that's a great question. And on the face of it, there are some groups that will say they want at least 50% injectable revenue. I
Okay,
think
so whatever you're producing, half that.
yes, I think
Okay.
though that is seen as a good proxy for a recurring revenue, right? Because if somebody's getting Botox or
Got
fillers,
it.
they're going
Got
to
it.
come, you know,
Uh-huh.
every 2 to 3 months to do that. That being said, you know, there's so much nuance in med spa. That's why I love this industry, really more than any healthcare vertical, because it's complex and it's nuanced. And you're going to have more fillers in one geography and maybe more Botox in another geography. And so from you know, Dallas, the Dallas woman looks different from the Houston woman that looks different from the Tampa woman. I mean, it's wildly fascinating to look at what revenue profile or revenue mix is successful in Dallas may not necessarily be successful in Scottsdale. But yeah, to your point, yeah, there are a few groups that look for that kind of 50% injectable revenue number. But I would just say if you're a med spa owner and you've cracked the code, so to speak, and you're wildly profitable in, you know, Denver, Colorado, and you have a different revenue mix, that's great. Let's sell that revenue mix. Let's talk about what makes your practice so great and what makes that particular revenue mix successful.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, culture fit is such a huge thing. Gosh, that's not even regarding, you know, who your private equity partner might be, and who you might be being forward. It placates into your staff. You know, I mean, it really sucks when I walk into a practice and I feel like I'm talking to a business owner that has employees versus team members.
Mhm.
Um, so I could not agree more. I mean, cultural fit is just such a big part of how a practice will continue to grow. I mean, I can even just speak for myself personally. My wife is a dental hygienist, and you know, when we were living in LA, she was working at 2 different practices, and the one that she was just a straight up employee at, she was grinding all the time. Doctor didn't really care much about her well being, and the other one, you know, really cared about her. You know, she really became such an integral part to how revenue was going to be created, and cases that she was diagnosing to send to the dentist. And so it was all, I mean, all that is really, really important. So I could not agree more on the culture side of things. Candace, to your question on, you know, what are some of the things that the top practices are doing on the marketing side? What boxes are they checking? I wasn't really planning on going into this tonight, but since you had asked the question, um, you know, we have actually seen, we were talking about this earlier about the onslaught of AI and how that is really changing how we use the internet, how we engage with digital sources, how we find information. You know, Google itself has really always been, its role in practices, this med spa practices, has always been about what it's doing to acquire more revenue. How can it bring leads? How can it bring patients and really fill a lot of that top of that lead funnel? Just to give you some history about Google, Google as a system is always refining itself, even on a daily basis. Google changes all the time because Google's incentive is it wants patients to use Google to be that trusted resource to go to. But every so often, Google makes big changes to its algorithm, which really kind of reshuffles a lot of the trafficking deck. And they name these updates when there's really big core updates. They could be historically ones have been called the Panda update, the Hummingbird update, the Medic update, which is actually back in 18. But I want to stress that these updates are very infrequent. There have been 3 core updates to Google's algorithm since December of 2022. And if you all remember that, that's when ChatGPT hit the mainstream media, mainstream consciousness. And so there's just been this rush of AI tools. And Google has been really much responding to this ever-changing environment. So much that they only just made they only named one of the updates, even though there have been 3 of them, and it's called the Helpful Content Update. So what does this mean? Traditionally, websites have always been tracked and trafficked as a derivative of the website's information, the content that's on that website. And for those of you who would even like to do just a little bit of a case study here, I would encourage you to go to google.com, type in a favorite place that you like to go visit, type in the name of a band that you like to listen to, and just type in Botox as well. And I will guarantee you that somewhere on the first 10 slots for those 3 searches, you're going to find the same website. And it's not google.com, it's not a social media site, nor is it a shopping site. But Google's favorite website is Wikipedia. It doesn't matter, whatever you search, you're always going to find Wikipedia somewhere within the first 10 ranking slots. So why do we always see Wikipedia? It's because Wikipedia is just a huge content resource. If I was Googling Taylor Swift and I found her wiki page, I can learn all about her discography and her transition from country to pop, where she was born, probably what she's doing to date Travis Kelce. I can learn about all those different things. And so it's taking one entity and it's looking at things very holistically. Now, how this play gets into some of these Google changes is it can be very easy to really create replicated content with a personalized vernacular through AI. I could say to AI, "Hey, AI, here's a writing sample of mine. Study it. Take a look at it. Now that you understand my writing style, now what I want you to do is I want you to write me a 10-question article on common questions that patients ask about microneedling. And I want you to use my voice." And within a few seconds, ChatGPT could could write all that out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that content is unique. I mean, it is unique in the sense that it's never been produced before, but is it actually adding value to the searcher, to the end patient? And that's what we're talking about, which is the helpful content update. So especially when practices are in this position where they want to build more valuation into their practice through marketing, they need to be looking at the information that's actually on their website. And is it adding value to the end user? One of the things that we always talk about is think about all the common questions that you're being asked around any service or procedure. Are you answering those questions on your website? Because here's the thing, before patients are in the room asking you those questions that you can anticipate, they Google those questions. And that's where, you want to limit the lead distance. When patients are going to ask Google questions, you want to be that top ranking website to be able to convert that higher quality lead because they're searching more specifically. So that's definitely one of the things I see successful practices are doing, is that they're not ignoring their content strategy. But to Lauren's point as well, too, it's all these other periphery things, building out consistent Google reviews. Are they limiting some of their spam content as to what their locations might be on the internet? If they've gone from one location to another location, or if they've rebranded their practice, all that stuff really needs to get cleaned up. As a matter of fact, we did a big data study where we profiled over 3,000 aesthetics practices. And what we had found is only 1 in 10 practices nationally is doing anything to really manage their, what we call their local listings. And that was, if you remember, one of the first foundational things that you have to do from a marketing perspective. And so, very easy wins. But again, it's just going back to making sure, are we building the right infrastructure, and being patient to be able to build sustainable results over time. So, well, guys, to that end here, I just want to say, Lauren, thank you so much, for taking the time to, hop on here with me this evening. And this has been a really inspiring conversation. I personally got a lot out of this, just understanding more about your world, and the value that the practice companies really placate into helping practices to grow. Guys, for those who are attending here, would encourage you, Lauren, I can let you talk about the practice companies here, but for those of you who are watching this, and if you're wanting to delve in a little bit deeper into your marketing, if you know that you need to make some changes, just don't know where to start, or having some good guidance or a sound partner, I would encourage you to, take out your phone, scan this QR code. This links directly into my calendar. Feel free to book a complimentary consultation with me. We're going to really dive into a lot of your blind spots, how you can be better positioned, how we can help. If you're not necessarily ready for that, but would at least love to stay in touch, please follow me on Instagram. That's my IG handle. Again, you could just scan that QR code and you can get connected directly to me. Lauren, I don't want to misrepresent anything here, so I'll let you kind of explain your piece below.
Sure. So on our website, which is practicetransitionsgroup.com, we have a practice valuation calculator. So if there's anyone listening that's curious to know, get a ballpark of where their practice may be today, you're prompted to enter in and answer a handful of questions, and then we'll deliver a high level valuation for you. I would also encourage you to reach out. I love chatting with people. This is such a fun industry, and I'm always happy to share my knowledge and give people an idea of kind of where they might be if they were interested in looking at evaluation or a transition today. And chat through, what things we may need to do if that's not quite where you want to be, maybe what you can do over the next 12 months or so to have a successful transition. But it's a fun time to be in med spa. It's a fun time to be pursuing a potential partnership.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we're almost here at the top of the hour. So guys, thank you again for joining us here this evening. Michael Antozzi with MyAdvice, Lauren Wheeler with Practice Transitions Group. And hopefully we look forward to seeing you at some future conferences. So till then, be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.